Welcome to Not Quite Right. My name's Ed.
And I'm Amanda.
Amanda, it's good to be back doing regular podcast episodes.
I know.
So this is actually the first episode we're recording since Words on the Waves. The last episode we released, Porn Things, we actually recorded 3 months ago, and it's taken that long to catch up with editing and judging, all that kind of thing.
Did we perhaps bite off more than we could chew?
It's been busy. The last episode that we just released, it got pretty messy. I think we were a bit too loose on that one.
I don't know. I think you're more fun when you're drunk.
That's what Dean Corey said. He said, it'd be good if I was drunk every time. So
may I top up your glass?
We'll see how the night plays out, and your wish just might come true, Dean. Dean, fucking Dean. Haven't even started drinking yet.
So tell me, how have you been enjoying your set reading for this episode?
I've been loving it.
Yeah.
So I got pretty excited last time we spoke about Chuck Tingle.
Were you drunk or were you just like aroused?
Well, I don't know about aroused, but I was drunk, let's be clear. But also, I don't know, I was really looking forward to reading these stories. So I read a stack of them.
We share an Amazon account, right, so that we can both read these things. And you just completely fucked up our algorithm by downloading about 100 Chuck Tingle stories.
Yeah, we started getting some weird recommendation emails. So we'll be talking about Chuck Tingle today and his particular brand of erotic fiction, as well as erotic fiction in general. So my mum knows about this podcast, but I hope she doesn't listen to this episode.
She might like it.
If we got messy and loose last time, I think we'll take it up to another level this time.
Yeah.
So you shared with me this article by Elle Griffin called No One Buys Books.
Yeah, so the article was based on her analysis, I guess, of this book called The Trial, which was looking at a monopoly case where Penguin Random House in the US were looking to buy Simon & Schuster, so another publisher, and basically there was this sort of antitrust kind of case that went ahead to look at whether basically there was a monopoly going to be created and should that be blocked. Now, everything in the article should be looked at through that lens. But nevertheless, the stats and the information that she summarised into this article, it quickly went viral back in April. And the whole publishing industry is fucked.
Yeah.
And everyone was alarmed, and that's why it went viral, I guess. Everyone's like, I knew it. I knew something was wrong.
Confirmed all our suspicions.
Yeah.
And I just did some research on the side just to answer the question for myself, like, are people buying books? And looking at just general sales data in recent years, the trend seems to still be pushing up. So if we're looking at what that article is not talking about is just like total volume of books. It's maybe a clickbait title, but the total volume of books is still going up year on year. And it's about, from the stats that I saw, 400 million books sold per year in the USA and somewhere around about a $20 billion industry. So the industry's there, but it's more about how that trickles down to writers and which books are being sold.
Yeah, so I guess some of the big takeaways from this particular article were that 90% of books sell fewer than 2,000 copies, right? And no one can live off 2,000 copies, especially once we factor in the publishing costs and the publisher's cut of that and the agent's cut of that and whatever, the author's walking away with still needing a day job. So that was one of the big alarming stats. And I've heard worse stats than that, but if we just go by that as an example. But also essentially just comparing the publishing industry to like Silicon Valley and that it's this venture capitalist kind of situation where they've got their stable of books that sell, and that stable is the Bible.
Yeah.
It's Very Hungry Caterpillar and classics, Jane Austen and so on. It's ones that continue to sell over and over again, and it's not these new books. And so they take on these new books just hoping it's going to be what she called a unicorn and just have like this explosion in sales and be their huge money spinner. But that's rare. And she's saying it happens like once every 5 to 10 years.
So what we get from that is that these old properties, like you said, are really propping up the whole industry. That's
Exactly.
where it's all coming from.
Yeah, that's what's the bread and butter, which is fine, right? They need their bread and butter like any company. I wouldn't begrudge anyone that. Although I do have a little bit of an issue with the fact that they keep reprinting these like out of copyright books. Like they just put a nice cover on it and then resell all of Jane Austen's work and we just go along with it. All the Penguin Classics, for example, with their lovely orange covers or whatever, are just out of copyright books.
It's also similar to a bunch of other creative industries, so music and movies as well. Like
Yeah,
you
it's all being disrupted everywhere you look.
But you see the same kind of model, not only the fact that it's very top-heavy, but also rehashing old stuff, like greatest hits collections and
that's true.
reissues, especially for things like movies.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't begrudge that. I think what people found alarming, including, as someone who aspires to be traditionally published, which not everyone does, but I very much do, what does that mean for me? I'm clearly a huge risk. And so how do I convince someone to take me on? And then even if they do, if I'm going to sell fewer than 2,000 copies, is it worth the time and energy that we put into this stuff? I've been working on my book for 11 years through various iterations or whatever. That's a lot of time to just sell fewer than 2,000. And in fact, there was an even more alarming statistic that 50%, so we said 90% sell fewer than 2,000, right? 50% sold fewer than a dozen copies.
So half. I'm no mathematician, but 50% is half of all books.
Listen, even Mathemachicken can
Mathemachicken.
Yeah, half of the books, and I don't know where they're drawing this number of books from. I don't know what that includes, right? But half of the books that were included in this discussion sold fewer than a dozen. I would buy more than a dozen of my own book.
Yeah. I wonder if that does include self-published books, or because I find it hard to believe that a publisher could not even sell volume to a library or something
to their mum, a best friend, a colleague. I don't know. So what they took it from, I'm just looking here, it says the Department of Justice's lawyer collected data on 58,000 titles published in a year. So that's the depressing part. You know what I mean? Fewer than a dozen.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's not what you want to get after spending years writing a book.
Yeah. And then what? What does that mean for someone who seeks to make a career out of writing and certainly out of being a fiction author, for example? To think you run this risk, God, the rejection authors face already is so huge. The mountain you have to climb to get there, and it just feels like you just keep climbing. It's just this, we keep pushing that rock up that hill because you get an agent, right? That's just everybody pop the champagne. And then the agent can't sell it to a publisher.
Yeah.
And you finally get a publisher and you pop the champagne again. And then it's 2 years until your book's going to come out.
Yeah.
And in that time, you're working your ass off to get promoting this thing, to build your author profile, to network, all of this work that you put in. Finally, it publishes and it sells 11 copies. At what point do we get to just jump off the cliff instead of keeping pushing the rock up it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess that the key stat there is that out of every 100 books published, 35 are profitable.
Yeah. And they don't even go into how profitable because, of course, most of those profitable
break
ones.
even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're saying how do you then as an author get a publishing house to take a chance on you? And the other sad thing that was called out in this article is that the people they're taking chances on most of the times are celebrities and famous people who are putting out their books. But even those books are not the profitable ones for the company. More often than not, they're also losing money.
Yeah. I mean, if you've got your Britney Spears or your Prince Harry or whatever, okay. But beyond that, you're still taking a risk. So obviously they're taking risks on people who have an established platform, whether that be because they're a celebrity or they already have a bunch of books published or whatever it is. They've got an audience ready to go. There is, for example, a woman who in the US is a podcaster. I don't know if anybody listens to Morbid, true crime podcast. She put out a crime novel, but because she already had this huge platform through the true crime podcast, they took a risk on her and I believe in her case it paid off as well. So these are the kinds of things that are, I guess, getting attention.
But you wonder as well in her case, and I don't know her specific case, but could she have also self-published and actually just gotten a bigger piece of the pie herself?
Potentially. Yeah, who knows? I mean, that's what I find really fascinating about the industry too, and what draws many, many people to self-publishing is the fact of what actually is the publisher doing? Absolutely. The reason I want to be traditionally published is because I want that validation. That's it. I just want somebody who knows what they're doing to say, you're doing a good job. Yeah. And I don't know what that says about me and all my little childhood demons, but that's what I want, right? And that's what a traditional publisher will give you, that validation. But what they won't give you is a bunch of marketing investment or even really any energy in that space. That's on you as the author. So again, like, what are you doing?
I guess I don't understand the economics of this industry because, again, going back to 400 million books sold in a year, $20 billion industry, it's probably one of the products that has the lowest cost for development, I guess. So you're talking about the author's time for the year or so that they take to write it, which is time.
Decade.
Yeah, in some cases, but in some cases, many cases, it's a lot less. So it is a time for one person to spend, and there's also the editing and the art and the additional overhead that goes into that. But it's not a movie with $100 million budget. Yeah,
but there's certainly a time overhead. Like for an author, that's a huge overhead in terms of like opportunity cost of your time.
Of course there is, but that's a risk that is already borne by the author.
You mean for the publisher?
Yeah, I'm just where is the money? Where is the $20 billion going? Is my question. Is it all to J.K. Rowling? Like,
yeah, apparently. Yeah. Like apparently, and that's what's depressing, I guess. Like if you're an author and you're doing it for the money, get locked up now. Like you have serious issues. If you're doing it for the money, you're in the wrong industry because it's such a crapshoot, basically, and the chances of you making even a living are slim.
I mean, the sad part is I feel like you can say that about every artistic profession. If it's
exactly
music, if you're a musician, if you're making movies, if you're a painter, you can get by in that industry. But if you're getting into that thinking you're going to be the next, I don't know, Martin Scorsese or like Guns N' Roses, I'm aging myself here, like... It's very unlikely to happen.
Okay, but here's the equivalence in those industries, right? So what I'm saying is I aspire to a traditional publication. That's like a painter aspiring to go into the museum, right? They don't want to just paint. They want their painting to be housed in a prestigious museum because they want the art critics to say, that's great, we'll put it here.
Yeah.
There are other types of painters, right? There are other artists. There's graphic artists, people who do it for a living. They could work for a company. They could make book covers, right? They could do all sorts of other kinds of art. And even as a painter, right, you can paint more, I guess, like volume work, for example, sell prints of your work. There's other ways to be an artist that don't mean you get in a museum. And the work is probably... quality is different because you're mass producing or because you're producing to a certain taste rather than an artistic message, but you could potentially make a living that way. It's still going to be hard, but more achievable. You're not going to make a living trying to paint to get in a museum. You can make a living in that world in art, just like you can make a living in writing, right? But if you're going to make a living in writing, you might not be trying to write a novel that gets traditionally published because that takes a long time. As we've established, you're likely to make very little money if you even get past the gatekeeper, which you might not, which is a huge risk. You could instead be a copywriter, be a journalist, write, as I have done in my career, tenders for companies. It's boring shit, but it's writing skills that make an income.
And we spoke to Ben McKelvey at Words on the Waves, who does ghostwriting as well.
Yeah, so there's other ways to write, I suppose. But the problem is we still want to be in the museum, and it's very hard to let go of that idea for a lot of people, for people like me, right? Not every writer is like me, but there are plenty who aspire to that traditional publication still, even though we know it's fucked.
Yeah. One of the interesting comments in that article for me was that a Netflix of books would put publishing houses out of business.
So what's a Netflix of books?
Like you sign up for a subscription fee and then you can just like...
But don't we have that?
But that's what I was going to say. Like, isn't that a library? Like, don't they exist?
Yeah.
So that's, again, I don't understand the economics. Where is the money going?
Well, they have to, I suppose, print a lot of books that they don't necessarily sell.
Yeah,
so those ones where they only sell less than a dozen copies, they're losing money on those. They get taken to the shredder. They don't even give them away. They go and destroy them.
And that's why Amazon is successful, I think, as well, because, I mean, the old model of, well, you print 1 million books, you send them physically out to 1,000 bookshops and they sit on the shelf on the off chance someone wants to buy it. It's not very efficient. And when you centralize that and you move it to Amazon and they can print on demand and all that kind of thing, it obviously makes a lot more sense. So, yeah, apart from the validation that you so desperately seek, what are we getting out of traditional publishing these days?
Literally nothing. Well, no, I beg your pardon. The validation I seek is what raises it in the esteem of other people as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just me getting that validation, it's the reader getting the validation of someone's vetted this, therefore I'm going to immediately think that it must have some level of quality to be on the shelf. And we still have, I guess, a stigma that exists for self-published authors that perhaps they haven't been vetted well enough, which we know, of course, some are and some aren't.
Yep.
And, of course, some traditionally published books are vetted very well and some aren't. But nevertheless, like, it's overcoming that hesitance, I guess.
But self-publishing is also very profitable for some authors. So, I mean, people are buying it regardless of the validation effect.
And there's certain industries which really thrive in that world. Like romance is an obvious one. And I think most romance writers are just going straight there. Like they just don't even need traditional publication anymore. However, it's a little bit different in kids writing because the people who are buying kids' books are often the adults, or at least they're a gatekeeper for the children in their lives as to which books they're buying and not. And I have been told, I understand, that for kids' books it's harder to sell as indie published because there isn't that level of like, oh, we trust they've taken all the swear words out or whatever it might be. We trust that it's a level of quality because someone else has put their stamp of approval on it.
I feel like kids' books as well need a little bit more of that infrastructure around it, like the distribution side of it. Like they're going to be more skewed physical than romance, which you can just download onto your Kindle and read wherever.
Potentially. I mean, I don't even know if that's true. I'm just basing that on conjecture more than anything. But it makes sense to me. Like, I would be more inclined to buy a traditionally published book for my children. Although, if I knew the author or had a good sense of what the product was, I might be more inclined to buy an indie published kids book. It just depends. Like, I guess I wouldn't be able to trust it blindly. I'd have to have some sort of recommendation or something else. Whereas I guess traditional publication comes as its own form of recommendation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I think it's important to remember that the stats in this article, which come from the case, are skewed towards making publishing look like it's making no money, right? Because this is an anti-monopoly court case, right? The companies, the publishers are trying to say, oh, we're all starving and like this is terrible and no one's really buying books anyway because they want to downplay how much money they're making out of this stuff. So we do have to look at it from that perspective. But I guess what it revealed was what we know and what we fear already, that the money goes to the celebrity authors, you know, their advances, which are huge, which they probably don't earn out in most cases. And they're not even writing their books in most cases. So that's, for authors, depressing. And then, of course, the Bibles and the repeat sellers. And that's what's propping up the industry. And it's like throwing the scraps to everyone else, basically.
I'm also saddened, though, that that's what people are buying. Because that's the implication, is that people are not really buying original fiction and they're buying, what is this, celebrity I like, think about X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's just the state of reading these days.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It really shits me off.
Yeah. I think, though, that from a sales perspective and like, is reading as a idea thriving? I think it kind of is, because there's Book Talk and there's BookTube and there's all this shit where people love to talk about books and blah, blah, blah. Do they read the books? I don't know. But they buy the books at least, right? They put them on the shelf.
Yeah. It's like when people buy like a J.K. Rowling book to burn it or whatever. And she's like, thanks, guys. You know?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to just pose a little theoretical question to you here. Do you think we're evolving beyond the novel?
Yeah, and I think I've said this on in a previous episode, that the novel is in that category of dying art forms because everything gets superseded. It's now not so novel. It was novel in the 19th century. But yeah, we have movies now. We have YouTube now, like whatever. But it's got to compete with all these other.
Yeah, true. It's just one form of entertainment. And I mean, if anyone listening is like me, which I'm sure you all are, like your stack of to-be-read books is insane. I just don't have the brain power. I just can't focus.
Increasingly. I need glasses. That's a different story.
That'll be me in a few years too. But yeah, it's competing with other forms of entertainment, whereas back when the novel first came out, it was more rare. It was something special. It was something...
And people had the time. I'm sure this is a rose-coloured glasses thing, and I'm sure if you were a worker in that day and age, you're going to struggle to find the time.
You weren't literate, so you weren't reading books.
Yeah, like people could sit down and read A War and Peace, and they'd be like, oh, that was nice. That was well-invested money. That kept me entertained for several weeks.
So if we're evolving beyond the novel then, what are we evolving to? So how long's the novel been around? You know this shit better than I do. When did the novel start?
So it's contentious, and it depends what you consider the first novel. But if you consider Don Quixote to be the first novel, which a lot of people do, then it's, I think, the 17th century, off the top of my head. But it doesn't really get established until like the late 18th, early 19th century, when you start getting, authors like Jane Austen come in. And that's when, like, at least in English, a lot of great novels.
Okay, so off. Like what, 150 years?
Yeah.
Can we get Mathemachicken in here?
I need a Mathemachicken stat. Let's say roughly, because it's a blurry line. There were books. Like, people were publishing books, but is it a novel? Question mark.
Okay. I mean, that's not long.
Yeah.
That's nothing, right? That's a few generations. So this is a flash in the pan thing. And I'm treating it like this is the be-all and end-all, like, goal of my life. As if this is the pinnacle, this is the one answer to the question. It's like, well, if it's only been around for 150 years, well, that's not that long. So now I'm thinking, well, what other methods are there? And what I found interesting here is, again, if we're looking at these stats that we've been talking about in context, the woman who wrote this article about it also has her own agenda, right? She's publishing on Substack. She has like a subscription model kind of blog, basically, which a lot of people do on Substack. I'm never been on Substack. I'm going to have to get on there.
Yeah.
But so her agenda, I guess, is pushing people onto Substack.
Yeah.
And I was getting sold, right? So I was reading a couple of her other articles, and she's basically saying, yeah, we're kind of evolving beyond the novel. This business model isn't working for anyone but the publishers who are republishing the Bible and Hungry Caterpillar and whatever.
Which you can just download for free. Like,
which you can just...
Public service announcement here. Just download it for free. It's out of copyright. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal here.
But I guess she was doing the maths and sort of saying, if you have 1,000 people who pay $80 subscription for your weekly articles or whatever it might be on Substack, then that's enough to make a good living.
Yeah.
That sounds good, actually.
Yeah.
That sounds better than spending 11 years on a novel that still hasn't gone anywhere. That may never go anywhere because I'm taking a risk on someone else, like letting me through the gate, let alone then selling any to anybody else. And I think that's good. Like in high school, you've read my beautiful anti-fan fiction, High Doses of Obsession.
Anti-fan fiction / actually fan fiction.
We don't say the quiet part out loud. Anyway, that was serialized. That was me bringing a chapter into school every time I had time to write one. I'm still doing that now. I occasionally post a chapter of the sequel to my friend Rachel when I get a chance to write it. And, that's an audience of one. Potentially not going to be very profitable for me. But this idea of writing regularly at, more volume, something of quality, whatever your niche is, finding your niche and just targeting them, not trying to mass sell 500,000 copies of a novel, but instead just getting your niche 1,000 people in the world who really care about your product and selling straight to them.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think it's really appealing, and I think it's very rewarding for writers, because that whole cycle that you mentioned, you lock yourself in a room for a year, you churn out a novel, you get it to the publisher, they edit it for, months and months, then you hit the road and you're talking about it, you're doing interviews, and that long cycle of publishing for one thing that you're just like locked in, it takes a long time to get to that point. Whereas you can just put something out, like the internet's there. You can put something there, you can charge people, and we'll talk about Chuck Tingle, but that's what he does. He writes it, he puts it out, and it's there and people pay for it. I mean, that it must be much more rewarding in a way to do it that way. I remember this was many years ago, listening to one of Kevin Smith's podcasts, the director Kevin Smith, director of Clerks, and he was saying like he stopped finding movies, making movies that fulfilling, because it's just that process. Like you have an idea and he loves coming up with the idea and writing the script, and then you're just stuck in like the production and the shooting and blah, blah, all of the real stuff. And then it's got to come out. And then it's like a year and a half later and you're like, well, I'm already over it. Whereas he was talking about from the perspective of doing a podcast, and he's like, I'd much prefer to go on a podcast and just talk about my idea. And now it's out and I feel rewarded and I feel like I've got the same buzz just doing it that way, right? Rather than just to go through that whole painful process. You don't get paid as much, I guess, but...
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's what's your motivation. And the problem with me is that listen, I contain multitudes, right? And you need to know that about me. But one of my multitudes of things is that I'm a romantic. The idea of holding my own book in my hands, but one which has passed through the gatekeepers, is so powerful to me that I still cling to that as a dream.
Yeah.
And then there's the practical side of me, the business side of me, the side of me who read Babysitter's Club as a tween and fully absorbed the message that I should just be out there being an entrepreneur, right? Yep. That part of me is like, how can I make this my living? How can I do this all the time because it's fun and make it fun and live a life that's fun instead of living the drudgery so that I can make art on the side? Do we make the art or do we sort of make something that's not quite art but is, I guess, feeding our soul through using our skills and our talents?
Yeah.
And so for me, like both of those things are appealing and they kind of stand in contradiction to each other and we can do both. I mean, my job does involve writing, my day job.
Yeah.
So I do both and it does involve creativity and stuff like that. And I've sort of designed my job to do that because that's what I love to do. But nevertheless, that's not a novel that I can hold in my hands.
I mean, I see what you're saying. It's always going to be a compromise, right? Like if you go for the traditional publishing route, you're going to lose a lot of creative control, right? You're going to, and I don't know if this is true, but maybe you get the feeling at the end of the process that you have lost a little bit of ownership over your material.
That's true too, actually. Yeah.
Whereas if you do self-publish, you're completely in control. You can put out exactly what you feel like.
And then the audience will validate you. Like the audience who buys it validates you instead of some gatekeeper. Yeah,
so related to this whole idea of self-promotion and anyone can do it and you can just avoid the whole publishing thing and just do it your way, there are pitfalls in doing it that way too. And there are another set of problems that come with doing that. So I shared with you a couple of TikTok videos because one of the things I like doing is watching TikTok videos and then
instead of reading books.
And then the game I like to play is I'm actually being productive because they're related to the podcast.
Good for you.
So these are from a guy on TikTok called Jason Pargin, author. That's the account. So he's an author. He's got a really interesting channel on TikTok and makes a lot of interesting videos. And a couple of videos that I shared with you, which I'll link in the show notes here. The first one is around the kind of response that you can get from self-promotion. So there was one person complaining that they've had 1.2 million views on a video and you would think that that would translate to book sales. It translated to 0 book sales.
Woof.
And Jason was on there saying that's exactly his experience and his expectation is if he makes a video, if it gets 1 million views, that will translate into 1 copy of that book sold.
Oh my God. And let's not do the stats on how many videos are not making 1 million views.
Yeah. So he's obviously a successful creator on that platform. But he's basically saying, look, for those 1 million people on TikTok just scrolling, watched your video, liked it, one person in a million will go, oh, you're an author? What have you written? Oh, I'll buy that.
Which, by the way, like that sounds lucky even of itself because most people are just scrolling to the next video. They're not even awake enough to go out and do anything else.
And he says that the rate is a little bit higher if the video he's made is talking specifically about his book.
But then I guess the risk of that...
But the views are lower.
Yeah, the views would be lower because it's not as interesting.
So he's saying he's very established on the platform. He's got 500 million views of videos, so 500 million views, and he estimates about 4,000 or 5,000 books sold out of that. So, I mean, that's doing it for years. That's slogging it out.
And that's being good at that skill too, which not everybody is.
Yeah, exactly.
In making good video content.
And that takes work as well. That you can see he puts a lot of work, a lot of research into that. And I'm sure he gets paid from TikTok as well through the creator scheme as well. So it's not for nothing. But if you're going out thinking, well, I'll just go viral or I'll just get some views on my video and that's going to translate into books, it doesn't necessarily.
I mean, that's what my friends in the Coven, my writers group, would say too, that first of all, it's a crapshoot as to which videos are going to even go viral or get any views whatsoever. And then from there, again, like they work their asses off and some things get results and some things don't. And it's really inconsistent. There's not like one method that is always going to work. It's just like here and there things work and things don't. And so they're just busting their asses doing a whole bunch of different stuff, hoping that something will pay off. And that's a lot. That's a lot to do. This is to sell books. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is either way, whether you're going traditional or whether you're going self-published, it takes a lot of work and it also takes a lot of luck. I think either way you go. There's no guaranteed success, even if you have a quality product.
Yeah.
The other point that he makes in the second video, and which I would recommend that any of our listeners watch, is just to talk about, well, what does this whole system set up? So now, in the past, we had a traditional publishing model that would in some way select for quality product, right? So it was very product driven. You wouldn't even know what the authors look like. But now it's all about self-promotion. It's getting your own face out there. It's getting your own persona out there, building this persona. And you're selecting for a whole different set of things. You're selecting for like appearance, personability, that
just
kind of thing.
The basic celebrity criteria now.
Yeah, exactly. So what he was cautioning or worried about is that a lot of people come to him looking for advice. And he's
like, get plastic surgery,
well,
number one.
He says, well, you've got to have a social media presence. And the kind of thing that he's hearing from people, and especially, young women, is, am I pretty enough to be a writer? Which is just crazy. That now is where the selection is. Are you attractive enough in addition to also being a good writer?
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, right? Because most authors want to just hide in their little hovels and write. They don't want to be social. It's famously an introverted career path, right? Yeah. Not maybe me, but for a lot of people, they're writing alone in a room because that's where they like to be. And the idea of self-promotion is like so disgusting to them. Yeah. And they're different skills. Like people have got to be jack of all trades now, right? You've got to not only be able to write, but you've got to be able to market. Yeah. You've got to be hot, apparently. You've got to be good on social media. You've got to be able to make videos. You've got to be able to probably be good at Canva or whatever and create your own beautiful visual materials to share on social media or your own cover art or whatever it might be. You've got to be personable and social. You've probably got to be a good public speaker because you've got to not only present in your videos but also words on the waves, writers' festivals or classroom visits or lectures or whatever it might be to promote your book. You've got to probably be like an entrepreneur. You've got to have a good business brain. What's the price of things? How many units do you need to sell? What's your schedule like? You've got to be organized. You've got to be able to sit down and not just write well, but write fast. And all of these skills together, how many people have all of that? And the idea of a publishing house is that they would take a bunch of that stuff off you, but they're just not. They're
going to just take a bigger cut of the profits, basically.
Yeah, basically for very little. They are just like Shark Tank, right? They come in and they go, here's your money.
Yep.
And I'm just going to step out and leave you to it and hope to make a profit off you. And where's the team? These are very niche skills. All of these are niche skills. To me, I think a publishing house these days, I feel like they need to change their model. Why don't you have a social media team? I'm sure they do, right? But one which works on behalf of all your authors, in a really active sense, has a marketing strategy. Why don't you have promoters?
Yeah.
Social media promoters or even live promoters who are going out pushing this stuff. Authors who are traditionally published are hiring their own publicists. Why? It just doesn't make sense to me because I feel like the publishing house too would clearly benefit from all their authors having this better and having a professional who's skilled in that task doing that on their behalf instead of relying on every author to do all of these 100 things on their own.
Yeah.
Half-assed. Get someone who's good at it.
I guess it's that venture capital mindset, right? I'm going to put a little bit of money into a bunch of different things and if they succeed, great, I make some money back. If they don't, I'm not going to put more money into it. They've got nothing to lose, really. They're not emotionally invested like a writer is. So if you're not going to be successful, they'll just be like, well, too bad for you. I'll move on to the next one. Meanwhile, you as a writer feel invested. Well, I better get a publicist. I better promote my shit because this is the only thing I have. You've got 1,000 things. I've only got one thing. And so they know that. And they don't have to put in the effort. Because
but I feel like it would serve them to do that. It just is mad to me in the current climate. You know, like when we first started this podcast, one of my main motivations for starting this podcast was to increase my author profile, right? But it's interesting, like it's taking up a lot of our time. I love it. I love doing it. It's taking away my writing time. And you really can't do it all. So spending all this time podcasting is taking my creative energy for writing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you can find your niche as well, like you said, with that person who's selling her Substack. And that's one way of doing it. This is another way of doing it. It might be slightly different, but it's a niche. It's a niche. And maybe that's what, again, we'll talk about Chuck Tingle. He's found his niche. You know, there's niches all over the place.
Do you think Chuck Tingle likes to stick his money in niches or?
I think he likes to do a lot of sticking things in other things. That's what I've learned from his books. That is a little bit our approach to this podcast as well. You know, I mean, we're just doing what we do here.
Yeah.
And it's a weird mix of writing and random other shit. And we're not following an established trail here. You know, it's not. We're not one of the many writing and random other shit podcasts. Most of the other podcasts,
because I want to listen to some, and I have to just listen to ours.
Most other writing podcasts are pretty set on like author interviews and talking about
like the skill of writing.
Yeah. But we're a little bit all over the place, and that's in line with our personality.
Our personality,
our shared
collective
personality.
I like to think of this as, you know, if you were hanging out with a bunch of friends who like to write, and you just talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about. It all comes back to writing.
You don't want to just talk about writing all the time. I mean, come on. It's other things. Sometimes other shit happens.
Sometimes you want to have an affair with a billionaire jet plane. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes, yeah.
You know what? Maybe that would solve all our problems.
What, hooking up with a billionaire jet?
Yeah.
It totally would.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's fill that niche.
I just want to like say hi to everyone who's in our niche. Welcome.
I hope you enjoy your visit. I hope it's nice and warm for you.
Please leave a 5-star review.
Speaking of filling niches, we'll be talking about the erotic fiction of Chuck Tingle in a second. But erotic fiction, okay, you're a woman.
Yeah.
Stereotypically, women are into erotic fiction. Are they the largest purchasers of erotic fiction?
Are they? Do we have any stats to back that up?
No, it's just a vibe, right?
Okay, let's make that assumption.
Like, have you read much?
I wouldn't say I've read much. I have read erotic fiction, yes.
Have you read 50 Shades of Grey?
No, listen, one time I was in the airport and 50 Shades of Grey was there. I mean, famously unsexy place, the airport. But
unless you're a billionaire jet plane.
Yeah, we'll get there. Like at the time, 50 Shades, it was past the buzz, but I still hadn't read it. And I saw it there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go have a look. And I read the first page and I was so offended by how shit the writing was that I just was like, no.
Yeah.
And we know that. We know it's not great writing. Like, no offense. Clearly you're a billionaire now. Like, you don't need my opinion about the
crying into her millions.
Yeah, exactly. Like wiping your tears with your $100 bills or whatever. Fine, great. But for me, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get into this, nor did I really have any intention of getting into it, I guess. But it sort of answered the question in my head as to whether I would find it entertaining or not. I don't think I would. And the other thing, and I haven't seen the movies, but I don't know, to me, the BDSM thing as well, which is not my thing, whatever, that's not an issue. But what is an issue for me is the kind of real rapey kind of vibes that this particular book had. And I would say the same about Twilight, for example, right? Which ultimately 50 Shades of Grey was initially written as a fanfic of Twilight. And they both had this real gross power dynamic that's going on in them, which is not my vibe at all. And so with all of that said, it was never going to be my thing. But that's not to say that no erotic fiction could be my thing. But I think 50 Shades is a really interesting example because people are like reading it on the train.
Yeah.
People are talking about it openly. And that was the first time anybody was ever really talking about that openly.
Since like Lady Chatterley's Lover in the 60s or whatever.
But even like, I guess famously, Mills and Boon, right?
Yeah.
That were always a bit more spicy and would have Fabio on the cover or whatever, as if he's the pinnacle of hotness. Yeah. But like it was very much looked down upon. Even reading Mills and Boon, like that's a bit of a joke. People certainly fucking did it in the millions, but weren't proud of it, I guess. It wasn't like the badge of honor. And now 50 Shades comes along and all of a sudden it's like socially acceptable.
I'm a little bit baffled by 50 Shades of Grey because as well, like that vibe, you're right, that vibe of I don't know if rapey is the right. And I
No,
haven't read,
rapey's not the right
I
word.
haven't read them either, but I know what it's about. Like Mr. Grey in his basement full of like sex toys and whips and shit. Like that. That's how I picture it.
That's
which
the vibe.
I don't understand. And not to kink shame and people are into different things. That's not for me.
Yeah.
It surprises me that concept appeals to so many people.
Does it? Or are people just happy to have some sort of like outlet that it feels more socially acceptable? You know what's really funny? Like, forget 50 Shades. That's so vanilla now, right? I'm thinking now of the cult books where it's like, it's full on, but like, there's kind of bestiality shit of like these half wolf people.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
very popular right now, isn't it?
yeah, and like these real like, it's sort of like a cross between like a fantasy and then an erotic fiction.
Yeah, I wonder what appeals there. Is it the fact that it's such a non-real situation? Like, you're not talking about humans, you're talking about whatever the fuck that is.
To be honest, I think with those ones that are like really, really out there, part of it is just the morbid curiosity. That is what I would read it for. Just like, this sounds so messed up. I want to just see what actually happens. I don't know if you remember, but when I went to Omega Mart in the US and I texted you a picture, who milks the milkmaid?
Yes, yeah.
So an AI generated Mills and Boone kind of equivalent called Who Milks the Milkmaid.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just like so hilarious. But that's the kind of book that's actually being created. So I've heard some stuff about like these weird stud farms with these beast creatures and like just creepy stuff that goes on. And I'm not sure who's reading it for like the titillation and who's reading it just for the lols, and maybe a little bit of both.
I have to say, though, Who Milks the Milkmaid is kind of hot. Like, I'm kind of into that one.
Okay, so this is a different market. This is a more male-skewed market somehow. But there's some other, I don't know, erotic fictions that have gone mainstream. So the other one I'm thinking of is the podcast, My Dad Wrote a Porno. So have you listened to that?
I have not. No, I didn't get a chance to, but you did mention that one, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess this guy's dad wrote an erotic fiction. It was called Blind Blinked, and it was bad.
Yeah.
It was poorly written, but basically his son and his son's friends, who were comedians, by the way, made this podcast where they would read it and just like analyze it. And it's incredibly hilarious and very enjoyable. But the text of the original book, again, I'm not sure how like titillating it is. It's just, to me, funny. So what, like, there's this kind of balance of humor and erotica.
Yeah. But you're right, and the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing, is it for titillation? Is it just like that morbid curiosity, like you said? You know, is it humor? In many cases, it
Okay,
is.
well, why did we read Chuck Tingle?
I mean, the titles are hilarious.
Yeah, so it was for humor, right? It's because you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And maybe it's our immature brains, I don't know, thinking it's going to be hilarious. But I wasn't going into this gay male erotic fiction thinking, wow, this is going to like get me off. Like, that wasn't what I was expecting.
But erotic fiction is widely read. They do get something out of it that presumably is more than just the humorous aspect.
For sure. I mean, it must exist for a reason. I'm sure even Chuck Tingle's books elicit a tingle every now and then. But also, these days, romance books come with a spice rating or a heat rating, right? So they vary and different people rate things differently. But I think of all the different genres in the world of book marketing, romance novelists are so onto it, right? They know their niche. They know that's what they're doing. And so spice rating is something that's like really common and almost expected now. So if you are publishing and self-publishing a romance novel, that you would communicate to your readers, first of all, what type of romance is this? And very specifically, is this a friends to lovers? Is this an enemies to lovers? Is this what are some other examples?
Frenemies to lovers.
Or this is a grumpy sunshine romance, or a forced proximity romance. Like, all of this sort of language is very familiar in the romance world. And another thing that they're doing is like specifying the spice rating. And so they talk about like closed door sex scenes, basically, where you know it's happening, but you don't see it, versus like the open door versus explicit. And there's this rating of how far it goes. And people will look for books that meet not only the trope that they love, but the spice rating that they're looking for.
Yeah. Like I was just thinking while you're saying that, the different ways that maybe men and women categorize their interests. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean. Please explain.
No, I mean, it seems a little bit alien to me to be like, well, what I'm really into is specifically scenarios where someone who's my enemy becomes my lover. Like men might be interested in, I don't know, voyeurism or something like that. Like there's certain areas of interest, let's say, but it wouldn't be specific down to like, okay, this is the plot.
The plot, yeah. You know why that is? Because there's no plot. In porn, there's no plot.
Often that is the case.
You're right. In fact, I'm not a romance reader, and so I also find it weird that someone would want to know in advance what the trope is. I know there's tropes. Don't get me wrong. It's not like a news to me, but I don't necessarily want to seek out a specific like narrative arc when I'm reading a book. I want to get invested in the characters. If they so happen to be enemies to lovers, okay, that's obviously something that happens a lot in romance and in real life. So great. But I'm not going to be like, all I read is enemies to lovers. I get sick of it. That seems boring to me. I think the spice rating makes more sense because some people feel uncomfortable with that, and that's fine. And some people seek it out because that's what they want. And that to me makes more sense because the spice rating, I guess it's not going to be the same every time. It's just giving you an indication of like the level you're at as opposed to like exactly what's going to happen in the scene.
Once again, a difference between men and women because I feel like there's only one spice level for men and it's just like 11.
I don't know. There'd be some men who maybe aren't comfortable with that.
Within whatever, oh, maybe, you know, who am I to judge?
What I also think is interesting is in the romance world, like women talk about their book boyfriends. This is something you hear a lot now. Like, oh, my
I haven't
book
heard
boyfriend.
this before.
Have
so
you
what
not
is it?
had
No.
book boyfriend? Okay. I guess it's part of that, I don't know, probably the classic book boyfriend is Mr. Darcy. But that there's this like fictional man who's like, he's your dream guy basically. And so you want to read the book just to imagine this guy. And these might be married women who just have their book boyfriend who is basically the fictional personification of the dream guy. Do you have a book girlfriend? Would there be a thing of a book girlfriend?
You know, we spoke in our last episode about the male gaze and difference between the male and the female gaze. There might be a similar angle in books. I mean, I'm speaking from my experience in the books I read, but I don't think there is that angle to try and captivate men in an emotional way and make them feel involved romantically with a character as there might be with women. There isn't really the equivalent of a romance genre for men in that same way that there is. So I just don't think that exists. But I mean, everything exists in the modern world, but that's not a big thing.
Yeah, it's certainly not at the level of romance written for women.
I can't really imagine the equivalent of a book where the idea is the man is supposed to be really into the woman in the book.
Yeah, I'm going to try and think of an example.
Listeners, please let us know. Send us a tweet or an email.
Who should we fall in love with? Who are our book girlfriends?
Would you like to hear about my experience with erotic fiction?
Yeah. Am I going to be grossed out or?
Okay, so my first experience with erotic fiction was at the age of 13.
Okay.
So me and a friend of mine, we were killing some time and we went into the local bookstore, like secondhand bookstore. It's quite a good one. And we were roaming around and we stumbled upon the adult section.
Ooh.
And we were like, what the fuck? They just have books that talk about sex in this shop. And so we read them and we were like, holy shit. And they were only like $1. This is the 90s. This is 1993 specifically.
I feel like secondhand books haven't really, like the inflation is not happening in secondhand books.
Well, you'd be surprised. But like secondhand books, you pay like $20 now for a secondhand book sometimes. Anyway, side topic. So what we did is bought those and then we're like, we're 13. We can't just go up to the counter with like these erotic stories. So we got some other random books and just were like, oh, here's all the books that we want. And we ended up buying like 10 books with a
Is
few of
this
them
like
thrown
that
in.
thing where people go to buy condoms and they just try and like
It's
hide
exactly
it amongst
like that. We're like, oh, and I'll have a couple of your finest erotic fiction as well as an afterthought. But of course the
My
guy
good
behind
sir.
the counter at the secondhand bookshop was like, whatever. Like, I'm not judging anyone. So we bought
He's
them.
just like, give me your $4. I don't care.
Exactly. So that was my first experience. And like, okay, so this is reading erotic fiction at a time in my life when I'd never experienced anything sexual and I'd never seen anything.
Because, like, yeah, there was no YouTube.
You couldn't just go and like online and be like, wonder what that looks like. So it was a case of using your imagination based on the words to conjure up what this might look like.
When you had no
exactly.
context or like, okay.
Yeah, so that was
amazing.
That was a different experience. And I remember that was quite a it's quite a moving experience. No, it was no, it was a seminal event in my life.
That's way worse.
And then a couple of years later, maybe 2 to 3 years later, I found an erotic fiction in my parents' bookshelf, which I still have to this day because I sneakily stole it and read it, and it's somewhere in my bookshelf, maybe for my kids to find. Maybe I better hide it better.
Totally. This is like you're going to just hand it down from generation to generation.
It's like intergenerational trauma.
Degenerational trauma.
But this one was way more fucked up. Like the first one I read was quite tame. It was like, I remember the plot of the first one being...
It's all coming back to you now.
It was a bit of a MILF situation.
Okay.
A bit of a stepmom.
A Stifler's mom situation.
And stepbrothers kind of thing.
Ew.
I think it was, or it could have been a neighbour. I don't remember, but it was an older lady. It was an older lady and some younger boys in the situation. This one I read
is worse than incest. Oh, God.
It got pretty depraved.
And so what you thought was you might just take that and keep that in your personal private collection.
Yeah. Well... One doesn't encounter a book like that very often. But like it wasn't really my thing, but I was more just...
Well, you didn't even have a thing. This is like you finding a thing.
I had things. I had many things.
All of which existed entirely within your own mind.
Well, yeah. But that was eye-opening in a different way. In the way of like, there's this whole range now of sexuality of things that I never even thought of.
Mm.
I wasn't into like what was happening in this book, but I was a little bit into it. You know, I wasn't not into it, but it wasn't my specific thing anyway. But since then, I've read some erotic fiction on purpose. I read, Marquis de Sade, 120 Days of Sodom. Have you read that?
No.
Classic piece of literature.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually awful. Like it's really bad. He wrote it while imprisoned in the Bastille. Like it wasn't exactly the right situation to be writing erotic fiction. The fact is like, and I'm going to say this about French erotic fiction in particular. Why is there so much actual shit and piss in it?
I don't know. Is that a thing?
It's pretty bad, and it's not arousing at all.
No,
like, it's not the kind of thing you want to read.
For some people,
not king shaming. I'm just saying
it seems niche.
It seems niche, but it's like one of those ones that everyone talks about. But yeah, like that is a recurring theme, right? The idea of who's this for?
Do you think it's for the author?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think
there, 100%.
When we write, right, we're writing for ourselves really, ultimately. Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point? And we might be writing to someone. Sometimes we have someone else in mind when we're writing, or we're like, I don't know, have some objective.
Yep.
But ultimately, when we write, we're writing for ourselves. So if someone's writing erotic fiction, it's to satisfy some need. Now, whether they have that specific niche kink or whatever, maybe not. But for whatever reason, writing about it is satisfying. It's funsies. I have at various times, more and more recently, and I mean, this is where my entrepreneur brain comes in. I'm like, I should be writing erotic fiction.
Yeah.
It's quicker to write. You'd have your audience. People would pay for it. I think I'd do a decent job given the quality situation is not amazing, typically. Why not? Why don't I just do that? I don't know. And I should.
Well, you've got to juggle between like children's fiction and erotic fiction. It's a little bit of a code switch.
This is the thing though, which is going to ultimately be more profitable. Yeah. We know the answer to that question. It's not really about just necessarily profit, but it's also about like that quick turnaround because erotic fiction doesn't need to be long, right?
That's what she said.
Just like a, short story kind of situation. Feels achievable.
Yep.
We both write flash fiction because it's like short and it's achievable. And like,
maybe we should run an erotic story contest.
Ooh. Who'd be into it? Maybe we should.
Does anyone do that?
I don't think they do. I think that would be really fun, actually. Let us know if you think you'd be into that. Like, even if you don't do that, right?
Yeah.
You've never written erotic fiction before in your life.
You can use a pen name as well if that's
yeah, totally. That'd be hilarious, actually. Like, let's all dabble. Let's see if this is really our world. Maybe it is. I started writing flash fiction thinking, I've got no idea about flash fiction.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. I'm just going to give it a crack. And then I found I enjoyed it. Maybe we'll find a whole range of new people who...
You also want to give it a crack.
Well, I don't know that I have this seminal, as you call it, moment where I was exposed to erotic fiction for the first time. But I remember being pregnant and very hormonal and looking up erotic fiction on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so shit. It's so bad. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff behind paywalls. I don't know. I haven't gone there.
Do you think there is like the secret good stuff? No, I don't think so.
It's probably all pretty much the same. So I would look for stuff and find stuff and just be like, this is really bad. And my brain is not there going, oh, I'm so turned on by this. My brain is going, I could write this shit.
Yeah.
This looks easy.
Critiquing it.
Yeah, totally. But it's not typically well written, and nor does it need to be, by the way. I just like, I don't say that in the sense of passing judgment as if it needs to like meet some high bar. It doesn't. The bar is, does it get someone off or not? Which it doesn't need to be critically acclaimed to do that. Critically acclaimed.
That's right. Yeah. But I wonder if it could be like, is that a insurmountable conflict? Like it has to be simple for it to be effective. And if it's too good, it's just not good as erotica.
I don't think it's a case of not being too good. I don't think that it gets bad after it's too well written. I think the point is it doesn't need to be well written because that's not what you're there for. You're not there for character development and like,
But imagine if it was. Imagine if it was like that good where you're reading it and you're like, this is an amazing story and I'm so into it and also I'm extremely turned on. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, this is what probably romance fiction seeks to attain, right? Like that it seeks to find a place where you care about the characters, you're invested in the story. And there are books and movies where you care about that stuff and where there is also sex scenes or whatever. But does that add value? Maybe not. I don't know that people necessarily care about that stuff. Certainly if you think about pornographic films, no one gives a shit about the plot. Like, does it make it more valuable that Debbie is doing all of Dallas? Like, does that help? Or are you more focused on the main event?
Each episode, Amanda and I take turns recommending each other books or movies that we may not have chosen for ourselves. It's a segment we call Get Wrecked. So this episode, I got wrecked.
In the butt.
I got wrecked in the butt by your recommendation, which was Chuck Tingle.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned last episode that a member of our local writers group basically just expanded my world by introducing me to Chuck Tingle. So she told me about him. I immediately Googled him, and then that's all you need to do and you're in love.
Yeah.
Right? So you start to see these titles, these insane titles of these erotic fictions that he writes. Now, this guy writes mainly homoerotic fiction, man on
X.
Man
basically.
on question mark. Maybe literally the question mark. We know there's an erotic fiction he's written about the M dash, for example, so it's not beyond him to write about punctuation. But basically this guy writes just about the most random, bizarre stuff, and it's all in the title. Like an erotic fiction with an inanimate object, but it's anthropomorphized into a human form somehow, or a concept. Not even an object, like the concept of linear time is one of his books. And I just find that idea so hilarious. So again, we're talking about like, what are we getting out of this? To me, it's the humor. And when you read this list of titles, the first thing you want to do is just find out like how is this an erotic fiction? How does it even work? How is there a relationship between a human being and a concept?
Yeah, that's the thing that gets you, isn't it? It's the titles and hundreds of books. Like I was scrolling the list yesterday to like try and pick out some of my favorites. And it took me like an hour just to scroll through the list of titles.
So this guy's been producing like a book a week for years now. But when we say book, they're really a short story.
Yeah,
they're not
they're
long.
about 4,000 words, I think, 4,000, 5,000 words.
Yeah, but every week for years and years.
So just to give you an idea, give our listeners an idea of what kind of subjects we're talking about, I've got a list of the genres that he writes in. So we've got dinosaur tinglers, unicorn tinglers, Bigfoot, living object tinglers, which is actually the largest category of tinglers, just involving objects that have come to life and want a ferg. No sex tinglers.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty interesting. Lesbian tinglers, trans tinglers, bisexual group tinglers, gender fluid and or non-binary tinglers, no straight tinglers, none whatsoever. So
maybe he feels that's an overserved market.
Could be. And then interactive fiction, like choose your own adventure type books. I think that's a pretty good idea, especially for erotic fiction.
Yeah. You don't need to pick your spice rating. Choose as you go.
Exactly. Like, do you leave the door open? Do you leave the door closed?
So, I don't know. You've got your categories there. That's how he breaks it up. I actually have different categories.
Okay.
So, for sure, he's got these very specific sort of series that he puts out, right? But to me, he's got themes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you go through his books, even amongst inanimate objects that become animated, there's themes. So one of the themes is like weird creatures. Maybe it's Bigfoot, maybe it's a unicorn, whatever it might be, or a dinosaur. But here's an example of a title of a weird creatures book. Bigfoot Sommelier Butt Tasting. Okay. Then we've got Buttception. So Buttception I love. So he's got Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt, right, which is pretty seminal, shall we say, in the Chuck Tingle repertoire. But then we've got Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. And then we've got Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Book, Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt.
Yep.
And it goes on and on,
and
right?
you wonder, because I had the same thing, how deep do you think you can go in terms of levels of being pounded in the butt? The answer is 5 levels deep.
Okay, so far, right?
So far.
So hit us with it.
Yeah, so pounded in the butt by my book, 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 pounded in the butt by my own butt. I think that's the longest one, unless I only did 4 levels.
I don't know, man. I'm
lost track of it. It's a lot of pounding, lots of butts.
But that's Buttception. Okay, and then we've got like the more fun and frivolous titles that just feel like that kind of daytime soap level hilarious, which is, here's an example, Unicorn Butt Cops Beach Patrol.
Yep.
So just really...
Which I've read.
Have you indeed? I'll be interested in your thoughts. Okay, and then we've got concepts. Okay, so this is what I was talking about before. And this is what captured my imagination more than anything. But here's an example of a concept erotic fiction. Slammed in the Butt by My Concept of Linear Time, which I have also read. Okay. And that is the one that you've just got to read just to understand how. And then we've got the popular culture or the topical items, right? So maybe he's running out of ideas by this point. And so he's leaning into pop culture to get his inspiration.
Well, I've got a couple of examples.
Oh, okay.
If
Hit
you'll,
me. No, yeah, go ahead.
Humour me here. Pounded by the gay colour-changing dress. Remember the dress that some people saw as blue and some people saw as yellow?
I've got a similar one. Okay. Seduced by the handsome, physically manifested sound that some people hear as Yanni and some people hear as Laurel.
Yeah.
We've also got Leonardo DiCaprio finally
And
wins
sorry,
his...
I just want to interject and say, you hear that title as someone who hasn't read the book and you think that's a funny title, but I just want to make it clear that what's happening in this book is that he's literally getting pounded in the butt by the handsome physical manifestation of that sound. Like that sound... You just knock over your microphone. That sound has come to life and is pounding him in the butt. That's actually happening. It's described in detail. The whole process of how it's happened is being described. And that's what makes these books so compelling.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But anyway, first of all, I just want to finish my little summary of the different types. Okay, so beyond then those pop culture references, we also have the self-referential books. Okay, so these are the books that are more reflecting his own circumstances. And one example would be Slammed in the Butt by My Hugo Award nomination.
It's like you've picked the same ones as me.
Hey.
And the sequel is Pounded in the Butt by My Hugo Award loss.
He did eventually win, so spoiler alert. And then we've got the political ones, right? So do you have any there?
I've got one, and it's also a pop culture one. It's Pounded in the Butt by Kofifi. Remember when Trump did that one word, kafefe, did that one word tweet, and now Mr. Tingle is getting pounded in the butt by it.
Yeah. Well, I've got pounded by the pound, turned gay by the socioeconomic implications of Britain leaving the European Union.
Yep.
And I've also got the entire continent of Australia pounds me in the butt.
Yep.
So, as Aussies,
we're involved in the pounding.
We've been there. All right. So next category, the classics, the redone classics. So we've got the telltale butt, for example, the picture of Dorian Gay.
That was right there, just waiting for someone to write it, wasn't
it? And then, as you mentioned, we've got some other like proclivities that are being sold to here. So we've got lesbian fiction. But what I love about the lesbian stories, is I feel like he gets an idea and then he goes, nah, that's for women. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to have a concept, sometimes the concepts for him are too lesbian. He can't handle it. Here's where I go, this guy knows women. Yep. Okay. We've got Petrichor is a lesbian and she gets me off in a cozy way during a much needed rainstorm. The houseplant that I never water gets me off. And number one among them, the physical manifestation of cancelled plans gets me off because deep down I kind of didn't want to go. All right. So just beyond lesbians then, I just want to talk about like trans tinglers. He's got bisexual group tinglers and stuff. And so again, I think he gets the concept first and then he goes, okay, this doesn't work as homoerotic fiction. This is something else. And so one of my favorites is bisexually satisfied by my healthy work-life balance. But like the work is a thing and the life is a thing, and then it's a threesome with your work and your life.
I see. That makes sense.
It makes total sense in Chuck Tingle world.
Can I list some of my favourite titles?
Please.
You've mentioned many from my list already. Slammed in the butt by my smartphone's missing headphone jack. I like that one because clearly he had some frustration at the loss of the headphone jack and he took that as inspiration.
This is where I'm saying that he takes those pop culture things, right? The stuff that's in the news, the stuff that everyone's talking about.
What I like about this next title is that you don't know where it's going to go. Open wide for the handsome saber-toothed dentist who's also a ghost. Kissed on the wiener by my own wiener. It's a little bit sweet, isn't it?
It's kind of cute.
Taken hotly by my handsome physically manifested hot take.
Oh, now I want to read that one. I wonder what the hot take was.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Sentient phantom tow truck pounds my butt.
So this is like the child in you coming out, the vehicle thing.
But here's the thing. Not only is it a sentient tow truck, because that would already be enough, but it's a sentient phantom tow truck. It's like an extra layer that didn't really need to be there, but he takes it there. I like that.
He's always challenging himself. Do you know what I mean? He's pushing himself to a new level.
My handsome mountain bike is a doctor and he pounds my butt.
Wow.
So a mountain bike has a career as a doctor. On the side, pounds butts. I like this one. The call is coming from inside your butt.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Two more.
Okay, bring it.
Pounded in the butt by the sentient physical manifestation of my writer's block, then realizing I've already found inspiration by literally writing about how I'm not inspired.
Wow.
I mean, isn't that inspiration for all of us?
Really, truly.
And my last one. Pounded by the physical manifestation of the comment, there's a Chuck Tingle book for everything, as evidenced by this book about the comment, there's a Chuck Tingle book for everything.
I love how this guy's brain works, seriously. Okay, so we've got our favourite titles, and honestly, the list goes on. Please go on his website because you'll find your own personal favourite.
You challenged me to come up with some titles for Tinglers that hadn't been done, which was a challenge in itself because they have been done. So I went with the angle of recent pop culture and world trends to try and think of things. And unfortunately, like most of the topics were too depressing to go on a Tingler. So I didn't go there. But hopefully some of these are in the spirit of Chuck Tingle. So pounded in the butt by the physical manifestation of ChatGPT's impact on creative jobs. I think is probably
also depressing,
concern.
but
yeah. not pounded in the butt by baby reindeer because he needs our support and time to heal. That's a no-sex tingler, by the way. And my final one, and probably my favourite, is I chose the bear and he pounded me in the butt.
Okay, that's fine, but was he a phantom?
Should have taken it to the next level.
So then I thought I'd go with the challenge too myself. And I'm thinking, all right, for me, if we're looking at these erotic fiction, like what gets me off? You know what I mean? Like what would be my ultimate fantasy? So I came up with my 5-book deal with Scholastic Australia gets me off.
For a second there, I thought you were going to go with Ian Thorpe, but... Okay, so I read 6 Tinglers. I'm not sure if you read any of these, or you read some of them,
I
right?
read some of the ones that you downloaded, yeah.
Yeah, so because we bought 3 of them, but they each had 2 stories in them. I'm not sure if you know this, right? So you get the one that you pay for, and then you get a bonus one, which I thought is quite good because they are really short, and they're like $3-4 each or something Australian, and you read them in like 5 minutes or something. They're 4,000 words. These are quite heavily plot driven, you'd say. They're not sex scenes. Like you're not just thrown in like, okay, here's the butt fucking.
It's proper erotic fiction. Like it's structured like a normal erotic fiction with a bit of lead up and then the main event.
The first story I chose to read was Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. And that one, I guess, captured my imagination because, like, how?
Yeah.
First of all, how is your butt pounding itself? Is question number 1. And question number 2 is with what? Like, it's a butt. Like, so these are the 2 things that come to mind. And those questions urgently need to be answered, which is why I purchased a copy of this book.
Okay, so answer our questions.
And so the answer is that a young scientist creates a hybrid butt-brain hawk who is a clone of his own butt and who somehow has a penis as well.
I'm struggling to hold it together.
And he proceeds to pound his butt. So it's explained, and it's explained fairly elegantly. And it's not
a big call.
It's actually developed with some thought and consideration around it.
Yeah, I mean, the story world is built.
Yeah, it's treated with a certain level of seriousness. The second one I read, which is actually attached to the back of Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt, is Unicorn Butt Cops. And I think that's probably my least favourite. And after reading this, I didn't really want to read any more like unicorns or dinosaurs and stuff. That's not really for me. Whereas I enjoyed the way that Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt developed its concepts, you know, it was creative, I felt Unicorn Butt Cops was a little bit more like straightforward. So there's 2 unicorn cops, right? And they stop our protagonist. He steals a taco, right? And so they catch him stealing the taco, and their punishment is to perform a double anal pounding.
Wow.
And that's the plot. And then the double anal pounding happens, and that's it. So, like, okay, I get it, but at the same time,
that makes one of us.
It is kind of a little bit of an abuse of authority by the Unicorn Butt Cops, and like, there's not too much in the way of anything unexpected happening. Like what you see on the cover, with the 2 unicorns butt fucking the dude. Is pretty much what you get.
Is that on the cover?
I assume it is. I don't know.
I don't think it is.
Well, okay, then the title.
The covers, just for context, the covers of these books are typically like basically stock photo level.
Superimposed.
And I just question too for the stock photo models to what extent they anticipated that they might end up in this scenario when they loaded their photos up.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a unicorn and you've posed for a photo, you just never know where it's going to end up. The next story I chose was Slammed in the Butthole. He goes, it's a little bit more explicit in this title. Yeah. Slammed in the actual butthole, okay? So Slammed in the Butthole by My Concept of Linear Time. Mm-hmm. And this was intriguing to me. Like, how does a concept come to life and slam you in the butt? So this is quite an intricate little story involving a failed business presentation where the protagonist has a bad day at the office. And there's a time machine involved that kind of takes him back. And somewhere along the line, his concept of linear time comes to life and pounds him in the butt.
And now it's a bad day at the orifice.
And it's, again, quite coherent in its way. You know, it delivers on its promise. Did you read this one as well?
I did.
Yeah. What did you think?
I think, again, like you, I went into it thinking, like, how?
Yeah.
Question mark. And then you read it and you're like, oh, that's how.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
And I feel satisfied by that.
Yeah.
Not sure I feel turned on by that, but, you know.
Yeah, and it is hard to be turned on by a concept sexual encounter.
The thing is that they've got human form. So it's not just the concept. But he'll just describe it as if, okay, like you say, it's got a penis now.
Yeah.
And you have to just imagine how,
and
where.
On one hand, like, of course it does. You know what I mean? Like, what story would it be if it didn't? And that's one thing I really like about these books and about this author is just the freedom he gives himself to write about things like that. Like, because you might sit there with your logical brain and come up with this concept and go, well, no, actually it can't work because a concept doesn't have a penis. So I'll throw that one out. He just takes it and goes, well, actually.
Now it does.
Now it does. So there we go.
I mean, there's a lesson in that for all of us, right? Because there's sometimes in my own books, you know that one I got like, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the YA book that I wrote. And then I got all worked up about how it didn't make sense because of legal reasons and whatever. Like there was a whole legal backstory there. I'm like, that's not how it works. That time frame wouldn't work. I mean, if linear time can have a penis, then maybe my like jail term can be 6 months instead of 2 years or whatever it is. Who cares? As long as it's entertaining, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And no one's going to care. Like, no one's going to ring you up and be, excuse me.
I mean, they might. I reckon Chuck Tingle's had a few calls.
He probably has. So the second part of that ebook, you get the bonus, I'm gay for my living billionaire jet plane. And for me, that was actually a surprise highlight. Did you read that one?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah. I liked
that.
This.
Was kind of romantic. I was like, that's a weird thing to say, but...
Yeah. So this is the story of a jet plane by the name of Keith, who's...
like, I'm okay with it being a sexual story about a jet plane, but now his name's Keith. Too far.
Too far. And so Keith is a jet plane. He's rich, right? He's a billionaire.
A private jet.
He does commercial flights for fun. He does flights for fun. He doesn't need to. He's a billionaire.
Yeah, right.
But sometimes he just flies because it's a great way to meet people. So our protagonist goes on this flight, plane starts talking to him, sets up a date, whatever. They go back to Keith's mansion and then they have sex. What I really found intriguing...
Isn't it by the pool?
Yeah, by the pool. I loved in this story just, again, the freedom with which Mr. Tingle wrote about the subject. Because when you picture this situation in your head, there's logistical issues. How does a plane live in a mansion? Number one, right?
But he never
How
really
does the scale work? How does the scale work? And the answer is sometimes they're the same size. Sometimes they're wildly different sizes. And it doesn't matter because it's a book and you don't have to show it on a screen. And I think that's like the one thing that writing has over movies and TV is that you can say anything. It doesn't have, you can't draw a picture of a plane that is both human size and plane size.
Yeah.
But you can write about it.
You can evoke it in words.
Exactly. So that was, for me, I thought that was quite a good lesson in, liberating yourself as a writer.
And sexually as well.
Yeah. If you're into that kind of thing. So after those two ones, I wanted to kind of round it off with a lesbian tingler because those were both gay tinglers. And so I selected the sentient lesbian M-, my favourite punctuation mark, gets me off.
Amazing.
And it is about, like, I don't have to explain this plot to you. A lady goes on a date with an M- and gets off. So it's a punctuation mark who is alive. And there are other punctuation marks in this story and they all interact with each other and it's a great time. So this one was interesting because not only, like, again, the freedom that he gives himself, not only punctuation marks alive, they've got body parts, human body parts, but also inside the book, this is the story of a writer, right? The protagonist is a writer and she's not sure if her writing is that good and she wants to turn it from good to great. And she meets the M- and just in conversation uses an M-, and it comes through in the text as an M-, which the M- notices and elevates her writing. It's like this weird, like, how is this happening? I couldn't quite get my head around like how this took place. So I thought that was interesting. Did you read this one?
Because you don't use M-dashes in your own dialogue normally, right? In a book dialogue for sure, but not verbalizing an M dash.
Yeah, but the M dash noticed the M dash being used and was like, "Oh, did you see that?" And then the final one, which was the back half of the M dash one, which was Sentient Lesbian Jet Ski Gets Me Off, which was actually his first lesbian story. And there's a breaking of the fourth wall in this one, as there is in lots of his books. Like Chuck Tingle himself features as a character in this book, and not only as a character, but as the author writing the story, interacting with the characters.
The meta levels are off the charts.
Yeah.
Like, there's no boundaries.
That's right.
Ever.
So in this one, he's consciously in the story, being the author, writing his first lesbian Tingler, and speaking to the characters who now understand that they were also in a Tingler and not real people while they're doing this stuff. And again, we've got like the lesbian jet ski with the anatomy of a jet ski when it suits the situation, and the anatomy of a lesbian when it suits the situation as well. It's quite fluid situation in more ways than one.
So is it safe to say that you enjoyed your reading experience?
Yeah, I think so. They are intriguing. There's, I think, lessons in there for us as writers, right? I don't know that I would then go and read all of his writing, because there's a limit where you read a few and you say, okay, now I get what you're doing here. And it's intriguing and it's interesting, but you're going to get like diminishing returns.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if this was really your thing, there's like a whole universe you can explore of interconnected stories and a whole, like he calls it the Tingleverse.
Yeah, he's got these like recurring jokes and stuff like that he uses. Like he talks about chocolate milk all the time or whatever, and like buckaroos. He's got names like buckaroos and
And he references books in other books, and there's callbacks and there's all sorts of situations. So like if you read all of his books, I think it would be an experience.
Yeah, if you were like his fan from the start, imagine the originals, the OGs, living
it's the
their
kind
lives.
of thing where you can imagine like after he dies, it gets all condensed into one compilation, massive bound volume, and historians are studying it for like centuries, drawing all the connections and things.
Do you know what I think's also interesting about Chuck Tingle is he as an author disguises his identity, right? I think we can all assume that Chuck Tingle is not his real name. Yeah. But also, so he does go to like conventions and things and, you know, book fairs or whatever he's going to, but he wears a sack over his head.
It's a pink sack that says love is real.
Yeah. And he wears his sunglasses over the top. Fucking amazing. Like, so good. So if I had to go out on a limb and say, like, if any celebrity were him, it would be Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Because what did he have? I'm not a celebrity anymore or something, that sack that he wore over his head.
Right,
I'm not famous anymore or whatever. So Chuck Tingle, when he's out and about, wears this sack over his head that says love is real with his sunglasses over the top, and no one apparently knows who he is.
So before maybe 3 hours ago, I hadn't encountered any of that. And then while I was waiting for you to come over, I Googled Chuck Tingle, and he's got a YouTube channel and he releases very strange videos. And I saw a couple of interviews with him and discussions with him, and he's a very weird guy. And it's given the fact that he conceals his identity, you don't know if that's him or if that's a persona he's doing, which he very well could be a persona, or he could just be a really weird guy. Like the mental image I had of him was nothing like his persona.
What's your mental image?
I imagined like a more geeky kind of guy. I guess these little intricate plots that he comes up with, I'd imagine kind of a little more nerdy character. His persona is much more like he's a bit of a space cadet. He's out there.
Yeah, okay, so he describes himself as autistic and that appears to be a superpower in terms of like churning out these books. Like he's clearly got this obsession, this fixation on what he's doing and doing it very well. And to what extent that feeds into other aspects of his life, I don't know. But it is a weird fucking thing to do, right? To just every week write this kind of stuff. It's the kind of thing I could see myself doing like as a lull here and there, and then be like, I'm good now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to do it for so many years, and clearly he's built a following and so on, so I'm sure it's how he pays the bills. But I like the fact that he conceals his identity that way. I find that really fascinating. And there's a lot of celebrities who do that now. I think the world is a bit different. And of course, if you're writing erotic fiction, there's a certain potentially stigma around that or way in which that might come into your personal life and intrude on certain boundaries that you would have in your personal life as to what people know about you and so on. So I can fully understand why someone who writes erotic fiction would want to stay unknown or anonymous. But I'm thinking too about other celebrities who do that. So, you know, we've got Sia who wears wigs and so on to hide her identity. People know, if they really want to know what she looks like, they do. But regardless, like she is less known as a result of that, like would probably be less identifiable in the street because most people don't bother to do that additional searching to find what someone looks like. And there's other celebrities who do that too. I just think it's an interesting strategy in this modern day and age to have still a personal aspect of your life. Yeah,
I can certainly see why he does that. And I would be tempted to do it if I were him as well. It would just be far simpler to live your life with that as a separate piece of your life.
And people must know about it, but you get to pick and choose a little bit more. I'm thinking of the music artist Marshmello as well, who wears this like marshmallow head, you know, with the cross eyes or whatever on it, and how that protects you in this world where like fame is dangerous. But I guess one of the key takeaways that I get from Chuck Tingle is how liberating it is to just let your freak flag fly and just do your own thing and just no apologies. And you find your audience, right? If you really lean into what you're passionate about and what you find amusing, someone is going to pick up on that.
I agree. And that's my big takeaway lesson from reading him is just like I read his books and the writing standard is not always up there. And there's spelling errors, there's typos.
Yeah, because he's just publishing and just
he's just turning them out. But I read them and I go, am I just censoring myself too much? Am I just thinking too much about like what other people think and trying to please other people where I should just be following that intuitive view of like, well, what if I just wrote the thing that is inside me that I want to talk about, even if it's weird? And I think concealing your identity gives you a bit of more license to do that because you don't have to worry about what are my parents going to think if I publish dinosaur porn, you know? And it doesn't have to be that.
They'll be like, okay, but is it also a horse?
Is it a phantom dinosaur? And it doesn't have to be that. It can just be whatever you want to write about.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be sexy. It's just like, what is the weird shit that is you? You know, what makes you you? And we respond to that, don't we, as human beings? Like when people are really vulnerable, when people are just purely themselves. Because while we might not share that specific niche interest or whatever, our common shared human experience is that we're all a bit weird. We all have some weird hidden part of ourselves that we don't want people to know about. And that may not be dinosaur porn, but it's something equally weird in some other world.
And I think it's giving yourself that permission to just be intuitive. There's a risk where, as a writer, you sit down and you think, well, how is what I'm writing going to be perceived? And you do that at the brainstorming, at the ideas level. And you probably shouldn't do that until way further down the track.
Yeah.
You got to let those ideas kind of come out and be formed before you start deciding, no, that's not the way to go.
And I think there's here, like we run this writing competition, right? We see a lot of different stories. And I really feel passionately about people taking creative risks.
Yeah.
And they do not always pay off, right? Like out of every 10 stories that you take a big risk on, at best one is going to be like actually good. And the other 9 are going to be a bit weird and a bit messy and a bit not right because they don't quite fit the mold of what's expected. And so therefore it's more difficult to resonate.
Yeah.
But that one that you do write that does pay off, it's like, that's the shit. Do you know what I mean? Anybody can write. ChatGPT can write.
Yeah.
But only you can write your weird shit.
Yeah.
Only you. And so do it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah. Again, going back to building an audience, why write the same thing that everyone else is writing? Why not just write the thing that you can bring to the table? And even if your audience is small, there's 8 billion people in the world. You know, you can build an audience around the thing that you're into.
Yeah. I'm thinking too just about my last Furious Fiction entry, right? Which I got really attached to. Like initially I wasn't going to write anything and then I wrote a really fucking weird thing.
Yeah.
It was only 69 words.
Yeah.
It met all the prompt criteria. Yeah. It was a poem, which I hate.
It was just the words, all work and no play, make a man a dull girl over and over again.
Not quite, but like thematically and like vibe-wise, yes, that's exactly what it was. It was me just losing my mind. But I got so much joy out of that, and it didn't go anywhere in the competition, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, I could go further in the competition with something maybe more generic or more like expected. I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But I had so much fun writing that. And I know when we get entries to our comp, you can tell when someone has had so much fun writing it, and it doesn't always resonate as a winning story, but I'm always just cheering like, yes, like, you know, because it doesn't matter at that point if you make the long list or get a prize. You've already won.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as like a bullshit cliche thing. Like that, I truly believe that. Like, life's short, man.
Yeah, totally.
But, okay, question. This is erotic fiction. Did you find it erotic?
I would say at no point did I find it erotic. Like, for me personally, no. It was more just about
Not even
like
billionaire jet plane?
no.
You didn't get a little, hey, Keith.
It's not for me. Like, I found it compelling and I found it interesting at times, and I like to see the way he kind of created that puzzle. But not for me. What about you?
I don't know. Like, I think I was surprisingly like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
It was more like, this makes sense and that works. But yeah, I'm not like, I don't know, seeking it out or whatever to fulfill that need. It's definitely more comedy to me. But does it for him, I wonder? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's obviously created this empire and now he has to keep meeting this. But is he still getting tingles from this? I don't know.
I don't know. I was racking my brain today trying to decide what to recommend to you, because I do not want to hit you with the shit that I find interesting, because I know it's going to bore you to tears and depress you. All my recommendations, you're like, nah. So,
Not always.
so anyway, I did choose something that will probably depress you.
Okay.
But maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, the movie's called May December. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It is from 2023 and it's starring Natalie Portman.
Ugh.
Really?
No, I have an old grudge against Natalie
Why?
Portman.
Because she's the most beautiful woman on the planet.
Kind of. My high school boyfriend was in love with her. And so obviously I hate her.
Every boy was in love with her.
Yeah.
It's starring Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore. And I don't want to say anything about the plot, but I'll tell you what I loved about this movie. It's very subtle, and it's one that I've thought about a lot since watching as well. It's one that kind of keeps coming back as an idea. And we've talked before in writing and also in critiques that we've written about like the story beneath the story. And this is one that I think is the perfect embodiment of that idea of the story beneath the story. There is a story here that is never made explicit. It's never on the surface, but it's very clear right below the surface. And as the viewer, that's what you're watching. And I think it does it so well. Great performances, all that kind of thing. But I think it's something that I'd never seen handled this well and this subtly. There are some dark themes in there. Maybe just Google this movie to see if it's for you, if you're listening to this. But yeah, I thought this was a really, really great screenplay, like really great story. And the way that it was told, I think maybe a lesson there for writers as well. It's a good one to talk about.
All right. Sounds intriguing. Like the sound of it. Apart from the Natalie Portman factor.
So I think we've been sufficiently pounded in the butt by this episode.
Correct.
So I think it's time to wrap it up. Dean, we've taken your advice. I've taken your advice, and I've had several glasses of wine. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to edit something coherent out of this.
Good luck with that. We've been recording for hours. About 4 minutes of this is going to be able to go to
There
air.
is so much that I'm going to have to cut out of there because to protect ourselves and other people who we've mentioned, protect ourselves from lawsuits mainly. But before we wrap up, just to mention to any listeners who don't know, we run the Not Quite Right prize. So check that out. We've got the July round about to kick off as we record this episode. It may be done and gone by the time this episode goes out, but just check out the website and check out the prize. It's 500 words, 60 hours, and $2,000 in prizes.
I'm really excited to see what people come up with this round. We've got our prompts ready to go, our anti-prompt.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar, that's a call to break a traditionally accepted writing rule. But I guess when we say break the writing rule, we don't want you to break your story. So we're challenging people to find creative ways to break these rules while still telling a great story. And we've been pleasantly surprised each round, I think, about the diversity of ideas that comes out of this. And it's really fun to see that creativity. So I'm hoping this round people really do take those creative risks. I'm hoping people do let their freak flags fly a little bit and that we see a real range of stuff where people are just going for it.
All right. Let's land this bitch.
Let's land this billionaire jet plane
right in your niche. Catch us next time on Not Quite Right. And until then, ride on.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to Not Quite Right. If you'd like to reach us via email or follow us on social media, you can find all the links on our website, notquiterightpodcast.com. That's WRITE. And if you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcasting app.
Something doesn't seem quite right.
But pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt by my own butt.
But that's buttception. Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt by my own butt.
Pounded in the butt. Buttocks. Butt.
Okay, here's the butt fucking.
In the butt.
I got wrecked in the butt.
Buttception I love. Bigfoot sommelier butt tasting.
Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt by my own butt.
Pounded in the butt.
Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt by my own butt. Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt by my own butt.
Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt by my own butt.
Unicorn butt cops.
Pounding lots of butts.
Slammed in the butt.
Pounding him in the butt. That's actually happening.
Slammed in the butt.
Pounded in the butt.
Pounds me in the butt.
Pounded in the butt.
The telltale butt.
Slammed in the butt pounds my butt. And he pounds my butt.
Wow.
Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt.
Butt.
Pounded in the butt. Pounded in the butt. Not pounded in the butt.
Being pounded in the butt, but not pounded in the butt.
Getting pounded in the butt.
And then pound someone else in the butt?
Clone of his own butt. How is your butt? It's a hybrid. Butt brain hawk. Pound his butt. Pounded in the butt by my own butt. Unicorn butt cops. Pounded in the butt by my own butt. 2 unicorns butt fucking the dude. It is kind of a little bit of an abuse of authority by the unicorn butt cops. Slammed in the butthole. So slammed in the butthole. Slammed in the actual butthole. Okay. Slam you in the butt. So
pounded in the butt.
Reamed in the butt for a bit. So I think we've been sufficiently pounded in the butt.
Correct.